Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be, and welcome to Tray First Look Agent Hub, Merlin Agent Builder. Thank you so much for joining us today. And before I start, please forgive my shadow over me, as I think it's where the sun is at right now. But again, welcome to Tray First Look Agent Hub, Merlin Agent Builder. My name is Michael Douglas. I'm a senior product marketing manager here at Tray, and I'm joined by my colleague Tom Warren. Hey Tom, how you doing?
Not too bad, Michael. Good to be here again.
Great, thanks Tom. Tom, do you want to go and give the audience a bit of an intro to yourself, just in case they aren't familiar with Trey, and if they haven't been on a webinar, one of our webinars before?
I happily do that. So obviously, my name's Tom Warren, product director here at Tray. I was welcoming Michael back then because some of you may have seen the session we did a few months back on smart data sources. So great to be here again to kind of walk you through the Agent Hub. And I think Michael's going to kind of kick us off and set the scene before I jump in with a bit of a demo.
Great, thanks Tom. So as Tom was saying, and before we jump into what is Agent Hub, so what we're seeing in the market is there's really two types of way right now to adopt agents. Now, there's obviously a number of different types of vendors out there, but primarily it falls into two different categories. One, you go with a prepackaged agent from a SaaS vendor that's out of the box. It gets you up and running very quickly, but really it lacks the flexibility to do two things. One, deliver a great experience for your end user. Second, suit the needs, the specific needs of your business. And then the second option, and probably the option least travel, but certainly still pretty prevalent out there, is building your own custom agent. And that's incredibly expensive because one, you need to staff with AI engineers, and it's very slow as well, right? By the time you build, test, and deploy the agent, it's going to take you anywhere between 6 months to a year just to do so. And I know, Tom, that you've had a lot of conversations, certainly more than I have with customers out there, and wanted to kind of get an understanding of what you're seeing on the feedback that you're getting from customers that are trying these different methods.
Yeah, well, as you kind of touched on, the agentic space is we're seeing sort of tech develop here very rapidly. And there's a lot of vendors entering the space as well as kind of, legacy providers with their own offerings. I think one of the approaches that it seems to be most common, particularly with the kind of the newer vendors, is this kind of static kind of agent-based model where you're building an agent for a specific purpose, and it kind of mirrors the historic way that automation worked, where you were using kind of templates and package processes that had a very specific kind of use case. And if they didn't have it for the systems you were using, then you're kind of stuck and you're having to adapt and change. And how often is it that a template you pull off the shelf for a specific process is going to do exactly what you need it to do? So we've kind of really kind of changed the thinking there and put kind of composability at the heart of everything we do. And that's what we're going to kind of show you a bit as we kind of get into the Agent Hub.
Yeah, so that's a great point, and composability is what all of this is about, right? So, we're very excited to be introducing Tray Agent Hub in a way to combat a lot of these challenges that we just spoke about. Now, first of all, what is Tray Agent Hub? It's really a first of its kind composable asset catalog, if you will. It's about providing reusable building blocks for organizations to build agents much faster. Sorry, excuse me, faster with much easier and easier to maintain. And we're really, if you think about it, defining a new category here, right? So you're able to build, customize agents in a very much scalable fashion. So what we're doing is you're able to assemble smart data sources, that ground your agent and your company knowledge. You're able to take AI agent tools that are taking action across the business, and we're giving you those assets in a very much more composable, reusable way that you can mix and match depending on your use case that the agent is trying to address. And really, what it's about is shortening the path from idea to development and taking out that um, the, that trade-off between rigid pre-built agents and the custom-built agents that you have to use. And that's doing a number of things that we're seeing with our customers is helping to reduce build time and costs. And it's also limiting your technical debt. If you think about it, there are a lot of agents out there that are using a lot of the same components. So you're not having to build a specific component or a specific tool for each of those agents. You can reuse them. So you're really reducing your technical debt. And also it's allowing you to customize the agents in a much more easy, faster fashion. And a great example of that is one of our flagship customers, Life 360. And Life 360 are really on the bleeding edge of agent development. They're taking an agent of agents approach. What basically means is they have a master agent that everybody interfaces with, and that agent controls a number of sub agents. And because there's a lot of components within the subagents that are able to share those components, they need to be able to reuse the tools and data sources. And because they're able to use Agent Hub to do that, it's allowing them to be able to build agents in a matter of weeks versus the months that it was taking when they were having to build specific agents or specific components for those specific agents. So really that's an example of an organization that's really at the forefront of agent building and how they're able to take Agent Hub and really supercharge their agent development strategy. So before we get into the demo, just to reiterate, Agent Hub is a first of its kind composable asset catalog. And we're giving you a guided wizard-like startup. It's all embedded within Merlin Agent Builder. So for our customers that are out there that are actively using Merlin Agent Builder, you're fairly familiar with it. So it's all embedded, it's all on a single platform. And you can organize it by business domain. You've got the flexibility to choose the agent's assets depending on the agent use case. And it's bundled around what we call tooled collections. So, for instance, if you wanted to do it for a HR agent or a certain component within HR agent, that's all very easy and customizable to be able to do. So, without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Tom and we're going to jump into the demo.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you, Michael. Let's get stuck in, shall we? So I'm gonna just share my entire screen here. And yeah, thank you for kind of setting that up, Michael. I think just to kind of touch on, you had that quote from Matt over at Live 360 there, and have been some incredible calls this week about. I think we're really moving into that phase now where, I was a sort of direct conversation with a customer yesterday where agents now are really starting to move beyond that FAQ knowledge-based style interface, and they're really kind of taking sort of meaningful action. Obviously Matt and the team over at Live 360 and some of our other customers are now able to really quantify things like ticket deflection and things like that through the agents they've built. So it really is incredible to see that. And it's really the kind of agent hub that's really powering that journey about kind of building up those kind of sub agents, this agent orchestration framework that Michael kind of referred to. So
Uh,
I'm going to kind of, oh,
Sorry,
sorry.
Tom, just if we just want to start by just letting our audience know what screen they're kind of looking at here.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Let's kind of go through that. So I'm here in the kind of the very kind of I guess start of the kind of the Merlin Agent Builder experience. So as you can see, I'm kind of about to kind of initiate the process of building an agent. And what I'm going to show you today is the human resources agent and the process for actually getting that set up. So yeah, this would essentially be the starting point for the agent building journey. And I think, just before we kind of really dive in, I think a real critical part of this to kind of think as we go through is, one of the kind of great sort of automation challenges, that kind of everyone sort of faces is how do you kind of present something that's really powerful, but not kind of, have a kind of too complex of interface with with a steep learning curve, and, iPaaS and automation vendors have been battling this kind of this tightrope, if you like, for years. And I think if you think of the hub as like this central place for kind of exposing those composable building blocks that Michael referred to, you can see how that kind of usability gap is kind of being kind of broken down by this kind of interface and is enabling kind of people who are using the agents to actually go and build them. So yeah, let's focus on the human resources agent. So you see, I've selected my human resources agent, and that takes me through to this interface here and I'm going to kind of build the agent up as we go, if you like. So obviously I've got my agent name. I'm going to leave that as is. But I've also got the scope or the prompt for the agent. This comes as fully customizable and it can be changed at any point once the agent is created. You know, we have a kind of a robust kind of working prompt in place. Which kind of guides the kind of this human resources agent through the kind of likely tasks it's going to kind of face. Now, if I move through, the first thing I'm going to see, and I kind of referred to this earlier, me and Michael kind of one of these sessions, kind of introducing you to smart data sources a couple of months ago, and now they're kind of part of this kind of hub journey. So I've got a selection of data sources available here. And I'm going to select Google Drive in this case. And these are kind of tailored and relevant to kind of potential kind of human resources use cases, which is why you can see things like, Gmail, Confluence, Notion in there as well. But I'm going to stick with Google Drive today. So I've selected my data source. And now what I need to do is kind of move on to the next phase. And now you can see I'm in the tool selection. And this is where you kind of the hub really kind of comes into its own. Is I've got tailored collections based on the particular task that I want to perform, and this is all about kind of flipping that kind of static kind of template kind of journey on its head. Historically, you'd go through, you'd see hundreds of templates, and you'd select one that is kind of close to your use case, and then you'd be going and modifying it, and that's where that kind of learning curve of using the underlying tool comes into play. But now you can actually just select use cases based on what you're actually trying to achieve. So we can select Bamboo user management. I'm going to use these two Bamboo ones here, which essentially handle user management and manage PTO. So once I've got these set up, you'll see how that kind of looks on the next screen. So now I've kind of selected my tools and I've picked up everything I need from the hub. I go through to this kind of configuration journey. So this is basically just configuring the things I've already decided I want to add to my agent. So I'm going to start with the Google Drive data source. So I've got an existing authentication here, so I don't need to provide another one. And now I've selected that authentication, I can actually select folders from within this Google Drive. Given this is a HR agent, I'm going to use the HR policies folder. Now I move on to the tool configuration and I can actually select the authentication here. Again, I've already got a Bamboo authentication in here, so I won't go through that process, but you've got the process to actually create the authentication directly in this part of this journey. So
And
now,
that first part, sorry, Tom, just that first part is really about underpinning the agent with the company's and grounding the agent and the company's knowledge. Is that correct?
yeah, that's absolutely right, Michael. Again, I think I've referred to it again, the smart data source webinar. I feel like we're plugging that quite heavily, but definitely worth a watch because that's kind of leveraging that functionality to actually go and ingest the data in this folder and make it available to the agent in a way that it can retrieve it at runtime based on the prompt from the user.
Great, thanks. I just want to make sure everyone's aware of that.
Okay, I'm going to hit next, and this is actually going to go and create my agent. So it's taking and it's using the configuration I provided to actually go and create all of the assets that power the agent. So it's created my knowledge base, it's created the data sources, it's now created the tools, and there you have it. There's my human resources agent, which is set up based on the configuration I provided. And if you go through that, you can see kind of everything in place. The data sources here. This will begin syncing in a second. So this is actually now going to go and pull the files that I mentioned before and make them available to the agent. You've got the tool groups in here. So all the agents come by default with the kind of knowledge selection tools. And this is what's used to actually query the data set that I ingested with the HR policies. But you've also got the two tool groups here that Michael referred to earlier. And this is really interesting, and the approach we've taken here, anyone that's been kind of exploring this space, there's been a kind of regular topic of conversation, particularly with things like the model context protocol, with a lot of vendors and vibe coders, if you like, who are spinning up their own MCP servers. Are actually just kind of wrapping their kind of REST API. And obviously that's not how agents really interact with functionality. So you end up with kind of confusing kind of tool mixtures and stuff like that, Whereas our kind of tool collections are based around kind of tasks that a human being would be performing, but you can actually make accessible to the agent for things like managing the PTO and user management. So that's really kind of the power of the kind of tool group piece, that you get this kind of group functionality that reflects what the agent is actually going to be doing in real life, which is why our customers have been able to see such significant gains when it comes to things like ticket deflection and reducing kind of manual work and processing and triaging, that kind of thing. Cool. So that's my agent setup. Of course, we kind of want to go and see it as well, right? So I'm going to get a kind of another kind of little kind of sneak peek in here. I'm going to add in an interaction channel for this agent. I'm going to add in Slack. And I'm going to use again this kind of interface here to actually directly expose this agent to a Slack instance so I can communicate it with it directly. So I've selected my authentication here, again, existing kind of Slack authentication, and I'm going to enable to send direct messages. This agent's obviously handling kind of sensitive things, so I don't really want it in a channel. I don't really want people mentioning it. I only kind of really want people communicating with this agent directly. So let's get that in place. And there it is. Now my agent's available in Slack. Let's go and interact with it.
And of course, we also have this we have it in Teams. We also have it if you wanted to put it as part of your own internal. We get a lot of customers that are building their own internal user interface as well. So it's really about meeting your users where they're interfacing, not us kind of telling you where to use it.
Yeah, you saw the kind of Teams use case available there. And as you can see, this agent has gone and actually accessed the Bamboo instance I connected to, and it's calculated how much PTO I actually have. If you actually go into the agent itself, you can actually go in and actually look at see what the agent's done in the kind of underlying tools. So you can see here. This is what the agent has just done. It's used this tool to actually kind of estimate my kind of like my time off balance, or get the kind of estimated future time off balances based on my current collection. It's gone and found like my employee. This is done through a deep kind of Slack interaction, because obviously Slack knows who I am. That information is actually passed directly to the agent, so you can't actually kind of hallucinate. There's complete protection against prompt injection, as we've shown before. And it's gone and retrieved that information from Bamboo because it has that tool available to it, and then returned that information to me. And so I can then obviously take it further. 3 p.m. as I'm going to the dentist. And now that process will kind of initiate, and I can show you that how that sort of essentially that process running in the agent itself. So you can see that's now running that request. You can actually track it as well in the logs, so you can see exactly what the agent is doing. So that was my initial request. So you can see me asking how much PTO I have. So you have that complete visibility as well of the request coming in, and now it's handling the request. As you can see, what it's doing here is I've asked to book time off at 3 p.m. So first what it's doing is identifying the time off types are available. So it's going to be sick and vacation. It's assuming that I'm sick because I'm going to the dentist, and then it's actually gone and booked that time off. And if I go back to Slack, you can see it's actually gone and booked that time off in Bamboo, and it's told me that it's waiting approval from my quite extensive list of managers there. But yeah, so that's it. That's the end-to-end process. I've obviously used the Agent Hub to kind of add all the assets that are available to create this kind of human resources agent, and you've seen it kind of taking action in Bamboo and managing sort of PTO requests.
Great. Thanks so much, Tom. And I think what's really important to emphasize here is that there's a lot of agent uh, tools that are out in the marketplace that don't really have the ability to take complex action across multiple systems, or they take very limited access or action within their own sort of sandbox. And I think it's important to kind of really hone in on that. Tray really allows you to do this because of the underlying infrastructure of an iPaaS. So any of our customers that are familiar with using Merlin Agent Builder will understand that, but perhaps some of the other people that aren't familiar with Tray, will be asking, kind of scratching their heads, will saying, well, there's a lot of agent tools that are already in the marketplace. So I think
Yeah,
it's
and
just
you
important.
And you would have seen that. Obviously, I selected Bamboo in this instance, but there was a range of options there. Workday and other systems that you could use and use this exact same agent with because the tasks are essentially the same, and all the kind of logic is kind of baked into that tool collection. So you could essentially chop and change. And again, that goes back to kind of my point earlier about that flipping that kind of template journey on its head, where it's based around you, what you're trying to achieve, and the systems you use, as opposed to kind of being very kind of static.
So why don't we go back to the deck, Tom, and kind of just talk a little bit about the future of Agent Hub and kind of where we see it going. Obviously, this is the early days of it.
Yeah, just before that, I can see we've got a hand raised from Patrick. Michael, do you want to kind of take a question now, or do you want to kind of wait until we've gone through this next section?
Yeah. So the question from in the chat is, are there any labs available at Tray Academy to play around for Merlin Agent Builder?
No, sorry, Mike. It was just the raised hand from Michael. So let's just let from Patrick. Sorry, let's finish the section off, and then we can kind of take some of the questions.
All right, sounds good. Um, okay, so let me go and share my screen again. All right. And then, yeah, so if you want to give a bit of a overview on the future of Agent Hub.
Yeah, this is the capabilities right now are incredible with this global asset library, but the future of Agent Hub is what it really gets me excited as well because what this will become is essentially a global asset library which you can contribute to. And I touched earlier on that kind of that challenge of the expecting your entire organization to become full users of an automation tool, an iPaaS tool. Well, this kind of creates this kind of world where you can kind of dual run, and make parts of it accessible. And that agent building journey can be a bit exposed to anyone. And who's better to build the agents than people actually do the job day to day? But also, you've got that full flexibility of Tray under the hood. This incredibly powerful iPaaS where you can go in and build out your own tools, your own data sources, and make them available to your organization through the Agent Hub. So yeah, so the future of the Agent Hub is this kind of complete kind of global asset library which you can deploy to your entire organization, which you can tailor to specific users and really kind of reach into your own use cases. So as much as our kind of our global library is going to contain sort of data tools for all sources, we're obviously not going to cover everything. So this gives you the opportunity to actually contribute your own, and you're not waiting for us to ship a tool. If we don't have it, you can go and build it, and you can make changes to it, and then make that tool available to your users. So that's very much the future of Agent Hub. This asset library which you can contribute and control.
Great, thanks, Tom. And just for anybody that is using Merlin Agent Builder, right? So we've got two really well built out accelerators, the Tray ITSM agent, which a lot of our customers have already adopted and getting great results from. And then we also have, as Tom was showing, the Tray HR agent as well around updating employee profile and PTO requests and time off requests. So it's really a great way to kind of get started in your journey with Merlin Agent Builder and get something up and running in a very easy to use case. Most organizations are well versed in these problems. So would just encourage anybody to start kind of have a look at those and start there. So with that, we'll jump into Q&A. So I'll just pull up. Okay, so let's start at the top. Will you be able to access the hub again if you want to add more to the agent?
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially, as you saw the kind of fully built agent there, with the kind of pre-tools I pre-selected, but essentially you'll be able to jump into parts of the hub journey where relevant. So if you're adding a data source, you can go into the page that renders the data sources. If you're adding a tool, you can go into the page where you kind of add a tool. So you can kind of then do the parts that are kind of relevant to add, depending on the asset you want to add to the to the agent itself. So yes is the simple answer.
Great, thanks. Um, okay, second question. going back to the first one that was put in, are there any labs available in Tray Academy to play around for Merlin Agent Builder?
Yeah, I believe these are in development. We usually kind of sort of get these kind of published sort of not long after the kind of functionality becomes available. So I believe these are in development. I know there was some kind of updates to documentation recently, which are driving that kind of academy content. So yeah, that should be in progress. And I don't have kind of timelines right now, but we'll follow up and let you know as and when the academy content will be available to support the agent builder.
Okay. And what does Agent Hub provide to help make agentic AI safe, i.e., limiting action and data access, preventing jailbreaking, etc.?
Yeah, this is a really good question. I kind of sort of touched on some of this earlier, with the kind of the Slack piece, and you may have actually seen it in some of the kind of the logs I was actually sharing. We know who the user is based on how they're interacting with the agent, and we have this kind of concept of static data. So we actually pass in static values into the actual tool calls that are made through Tray. And what that means is we don't actually expose certain fields to the LLM with the tool call. So things like the email address or user ID is not exposed to those Bamboo tools directly to the LLM. It's only kind of passed in statically from us. So there is no way a user can go in and say, actually, that's not who I am. My name's this and this is my email. Can you get my PTO for this user? It simply won't work because the LLM can't actually pass that information to the underlying tool. So we have this kind of process in place to kind of prevent, I guess, prompt injection, jailbreaking, that kind of thing. And of course, you can actually bake in additional levels of security to the workflow tools themselves. So you can build in additional kind of guardrails that look up a particular user, kind of restrict that kind of level of access. That can be kind of baked into the workflow itself. And finally, obviously, you've got the full observability and traceability in terms of the logs. You can review which requests are made to the actual agent itself. You can also, we have our kind of log stream mechanism, so you could actually pump out what the agent is seeing, what it's doing, and go through that and potentially use another agent to actually kind of monitor the kind of the throughput of the agent. So there's a range of kind of different options that are already kind of baked in, and some that are available naturally kind of through the power of the kind of Tray iPaaS.
So we have one more question here. When will Hub be enabled for users? So I think for any customers that are on, please do reach out to your account team to get the access to it. And for anyone that's not a customer, what I would encourage you to do is go to the Tray.ai demo, and there's a product walkthrough with Agent Hub in it. So if you'd wanted to learn more about it, that would be the easiest way to get started on your journey with Tray. So with that, I want to thank everybody for attending today's session. What I will say is we have got another very exciting session around our next release around MCP. I can't say too much about it. But that is on November 12th. So please look out for that invite, and we hope that you guys will be able to make that session as well for our next install of our agentic journey. And again, thank you so much for being able to attend. Hope you have a great rest of your day and the rest of your week.